Welcome to the Oasis. My name's Mike, and today here I'm in the center of sunny Cologne, and Gamescom is over for me. It's been a crazy couple of days, loads of business appointments, loads of meetings, loads of really interesting VR stuff that I'm going to be sharing with you over the next week in a separate video. I'll do a roundup of all the information that I've gathered at the show and show you my sort of highlights of the show and what I found was the best experience in terms of VR at Gamescom. So I'll be covering that next week, but today let's get into the Q&A of Ask Mike Anything. I've gathered all the questions that you've asked throughout the week and I've put them together so I can answer them, and I thought this was to be the best place to do the video. And I'm actually on top of the chocolate museum, the Lindt Chocolate Museum in the center of Cologne. We've got this lovely backdrop behind us, so I hope you guys and girls enjoy this one, and without further ado, let's dive in. Okay, so first question is from Jack M, and he asks, what's your favorite Oculus Rift accessory? Well, it depends. It's kind of got a bit of a caveat to this one. If you wear glasses, prescription glasses, then I would say the best accessory that you could possibly get for your Oculus Rift is a pair of custom prescription glasses, because what I found was using glasses with the Rift. I have a very mild prescription. Taking glasses on and off and then putting the Rift on is kind of cumbersome, and I came up with a solution using VR Lens Labs lenses and a custom 3D printed frame from eBay, and I'll put links to these in the description down below if you want to check them out. But they're fixed inside the actual Oculus Rift headset. They don't sort of scratch your lenses, so you don't have to worry about that, because there's always a worry that if you're wearing glasses in the Oculus Rift that it may scratch the lenses by rubbing up against them. So if you're a glasses wearer, then that is the product that I would recommend. If you're not a glasses wearer, then I would recommend the VR Cover replacement facial interface kit from VR Cover. They're an awesome company and have really helped me out over the years that I've been doing this, so I would totally recommend their products. The one that I would really go for is the basic kit, which basically includes a perforated pad that goes around the sort of interface. It's on Velcro, so you can just take it on and off, clean it. Really hygienic, really great solution. Brings the sort of lenses a little bit closer to your eyes as well, so increases the field of view just a fraction. But also for me, I just find it way more comfortable, especially for those long VR sessions. So I hope that answers the question. Let's move on to the next one. So this is a question from Milsec Ninja. How close do you think we are to glove or other haptic and hand tracking devices so they'll be widely used in VR? Well, I don't think we're that far away from it, maybe a year or two. I know that Oculus have been dabbling with hand tracking, and certainly from what I've got from Gamescom, which I'll cover in more detail in a separate video next week, is that there's a lot of interest in accessories for virtual reality. So haptics was a big one as well. I got to try on some haptic vests and also got to try out some really cool haptic feedback with hot and cold technologies. So that was really interesting. But yeah, I know that Oculus are sort of experimenting with glove and hand tracking. We've seen some sort of brief videos from them previously, so I think maybe a year to 2 years and then it'll be sort of gloves, but I think the controller definitely still has its place in terms of virtual reality, but it'll be very interesting to see how it goes. But yeah, I think maybe a year to 2 years, so hopefully that answers your question. So this is a question from the Slicer, and he asks, what do you think is holding back VR? Well, I think right now it's the price of buying a sort of PC capable enough of running a VR headset, then the VR headset itself, then having the space to actually have, you know, a decent area where you can move around freely without smashing up your house or your your rooms. So I think it's the system itself. But I think, you know, the Oculus Go is a very interesting product, and I thought that would break the barrier to entry. And I'm really interested to see how Santa Cruz, when that releases, will be sort of perceived by the general public and the masses out there, gamers alike, to see if they sort of embrace this kind of console type VR headset where, you know, you've got this sort of a PlayStation, you've got an Xbox, and then the Santa Cruz is like your third option. It's kind of like a VR console, because it's all going to be built into one headset, no PC is required, and you're going to have that 6 degrees of freedom tracking in terms of your controllers and your headset. So I think that's going to be a really compelling experience, and I think really a product like that is going to be the one that sort of drives VR to the masses. So I hope that answers your question. So this is a very quick question from Mix, and it is, do you think the Vive Pro is worth the money? Now, if you're enterprise or you're running a VR arcade, do I think the Vive Pro is worth the money? Yes, I do. But if you're an average consumer that just wants to play VR video games, then no, I wouldn't recommend the Vive Pro for that. I think you're better off sticking with the OG Vive, the Windows mixed reality headsets, or the Oculus Rift, because you're going to save yourself a ton of money, and then you can invest that ton of money into games and experiences which you can enjoy. The thing is with the Vive Pro, I think it's a fantastic headset. It definitely has its place in the market, but you just got to remember that this was never aimed at consumers. It is comfortable enough, but I think, the bump up in resolution is nice, but it's the other features that I feel are kind of lacking, the microphone, the audio. But yeah, so I would say it's not worth the money if you're a consumer. If you're enterprise or a VR arcade, then absolutely. There's a question from Mark S. He says, do you use a dual PC setup to record your gameplay? If you do use a dual PC, do you use a capture card or something similar? No, I don't use a dual PC setup. I just use a single PC. It's an i7 6700K processor, 32 gigs of RAM with an NVIDIA Titan X Maxwell-based GPU, and for that I find that it does a pretty decent job of doing both recording and playing games at the same time. If you're using the Vive Pro or the Vive, I would recommend that you look into an OpenVR plugin for OBS. I think that's going to be really useful for you and really provide you some nice gameplay footage. If you're recording with the Oculus Rift, unfortunately you don't really have much option other to capture the default window output or an OBS sort of output, an Oculus mirror output using OBS. But yeah, both can be done using a single PC. You don't necessarily have to have a dual PC setup to get the best recordings in terms of VR. So I hope that answers your question. But when it comes to PSVR, I just sort of throw that in as a caveat. I would recommend using sort of a capture card, maybe from Elgato or something like that, and then you can easily capture the HDMI output from your PS4 to capture your PSVR gameplay. So I hope that answers the question there. I've got a long question here from Tyler Jarrett, but the one that most sticks out for me is, do you think gaming or a social app will be the thing that blows up VR on a mass scale? Well, yeah, I think a social VR application is definitely going to be the one that sort of pushes VR forwards. I don't think it's going to be gaming that's going to really push the industry and sort of push it for, mass public adoption. I was really sort of thinking that VR chat was doing really well in when it sort of had the meme hype, and that was really exploding, and a lot of people that weren't necessarily into VR were getting very interested about virtual reality and the platform and VR chat and the sort of social aspect of VR. But that seems to have sort of died down now with the sort of memes of the knuckles and everything else. But it's just sort of a sign of things to come, really. A social application like VR chat, maybe Facebook Spaces or Altspace or, one of the many other applications out there for sort of social use, will sort of grab the attention of the general public, and they'll go out and buy a headset just to sort of be involved in that social space where they can hang out with friends in a virtual environment, or maybe, catch up with, friends and family that are overseas, and you can feel like you can just hang out in a pub or a space with them and catch up with them and really have that sort of sense of presence. I think really that is the sort of the big drive in terms of mass public adoption in the future, but we're just not quite there yet. So what it will be, I have no idea, but I'm sure whatever it will be awesome. So I'm looking forward to that. Question from Matt Borgman. So far, what is your favorite genre or style of game to play in VR, and what is the style of genre of game that you haven't seen in VR that you are looking forward to? So to answer the first question, puzzle games are my favorite sort of games in VR. I've always kind of been a fan of puzzle games, but in VR it really adds an extra element to it. Games like Static on the PSVR, I really enjoy that one. Games like I've tried at Gamescom that I'll be talking more about next week is like The Fisherman's Tale, which is kind of like a puzzle game where you have to take control of a fisherman in a lighthouse within a lighthouse within a lighthouse. It's kind of like Lighthouse Inception, and you've got to turn the lighthouse on because a storm's coming, and there's lots of sort of parts of the world in the little lighthouse environment that you have to interact with to solve the puzzle, like a kind of like a puzzle escape room game. So I really enjoyed my demo of that, and I'll be talking more about that next week. But right now I think my favorite puzzle game in VR is either Form or, like I said, Static at the very beginning. In terms of what I'd like to see more of in VR is open world sort of games where other players are just milling around the world and you can sort of encounter those players. Something like The Division, but in virtual reality, would be sort of the best thing in my mind. I really enjoyed The Division. the fact that you could just go on random missions with random people, you know, encounter people in the sort of world, and you have to make a decision whether they're going to be friendly or your enemy and take you out and steal all your loot. Something like that in VR would really work really well, and would be a really exciting game for me. So yeah, that would be the one that I would look forward to the most. Final question from Shifter is, what inspired you to be a YouTuber? To be honest, it was just that I was really passionate about VR. I sort of, as soon as I tried it, I knew it was going to be the future of gaming and the way we kind of interact and socialize with each other. But the problem was that no one else really cared. So I was like, okay, so I wanted to, you know, climb on the rooftops like I am now and just scream about VR and say how freaking awesome it was. But, you know, that would sort of reach maybe 10 people and no one would really be interested. So I thought, you know, going on YouTube and spreading my passion about VR would maybe help the industry grow a little bit and maybe sort of do my part and to raise the awareness about virtual reality. It's been evident at Gamescom that even though there was a lot of virtual reality there on display, that the general public and sort of gamers alike, you know, they're aware of it, but they're not really sold on the concept of it yet. So us as content creators in the VR space still have a lot of work to do, but we're trying our best. So, you know, that's kind of my biggest motivation is I just want VR to be successful. I want it to be to succeed and be adopted by the masses and be a big industry. And I've got no doubt in my mind that will happen, but it's just a question of time now. So yeah, that was why I got into doing VR in the YouTube space, was just so I could share my passion and hopefully help the industry grow. So there we have it, guys and girls. I hope you have enjoyed this one. It's been very different for me doing this in a public space with other people milling about and just looking at me like I'm a crazy person talking to a camera on a tripod. But it's been a lovely day here in Cologne, and I hope you've enjoyed this session of Ask Mike Anything. I do this around once a month where I put the questions out to you. You can ask me anything you want, whether it's related to VR or me personally, and I'll do my best to answer as many questions as I can. I normally post this on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and in my Discord. So if you want to sort of meet up with other people that are like-minded, involved in virtual reality and really interested in virtual reality and want to play together, then join my Discord, and I'll put a link to that in the description down below as well. I put a post there regularly about when I'm going to do these videos also. So there we have it. I'm going to pack this up now, head back home to London, and yeah, Gamescom is officially over for me. So I hope you guys and girls enjoy the video that I'm going to do next week, and yeah, until then, leave a like if you like the video, make sure you're subscribed for all my future content, and as always, I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.